Hey guys, Heather here from Naturally Present. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 4 of the Naturally Present Life series. Now, I do want to start off with a quick apology because episode 4 was supposed to air last week, and I had done an amazingly gorgeous interview with the beautiful Julie Ritchie, who runs Do Business Like a Woman in the UK. And for whatever reason, Zoom recorded the first 3.5 minutes only of that session. So I did not air an episode last week, but here we are with episode number 4. I have rescheduled for Julie in the future, and I have a different special guest who will be joining us in just a few minutes. So again, thank you for tuning in. My name is Heather. I am from Naturally Present Coaching. And before we dive in with our special guest, I just wanted to come online today to talk a little bit about 5 a.m. So I did mention this on the last episode. I don't really want to talk about 5 a.m. I want to talk about why early morning. I am a strong proponent of building and developing and cultivating for yourself a morning routine, a morning ritual. You know, it's not rocket science. We know that if you set yourself up at the beginning of the day, you're setting yourself up for better success throughout the day. You know, it's like if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed or the right side of the bed. And when you first wake up in the morning, those first few minutes, when you move out of sleep and dream state and you suddenly start to engage a little bit more in the level of conscious awareness in your waking life, there is a super special moment there, and it doesn't last very long. It is the most prime time for you to step into a state of meditation. It's the perfect time to start your meditation. For me, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I do get up and I go use the bathroom. So that's not a problem while I'm meditating, but I try my best to keep a very quiet mind as I'm doing that, so that when I do get down to sitting in my comfortable upright position to do my morning practice, I'm still in that state between the sleeping and waking consciousness. There's a little window in there, and let me tell you, it's gold. Because your mind hasn't got active with all of the to-dos on your list for the day. It hasn't got active with thinking about things from yesterday or trying to figure out the future. There's none of that activity going on for a brief period of time. And if you can start your meditation when that brief period, that brief window is open, and you can drop into the moment, it can be super powerful. And in addition, meditation, finding that place of centered stillness and learning to be the witness and the observer of all the things that are going on outside of your world, whether it's physical sensations in your body, whether it's a change in temperature, whether it's noticing thoughts moving through your mind, whatever it is that's going on for you in that moment. It's also a really good time to bring up the desires that you have for your day, or desires for your life, goals that you're working on, and to drop those into that stillness, to drop them into your meditation. And you're not asking the how, you're not trying to solve how you're going to get there. You're simply putting that thing or aspect of you that you desire to manifest in your life, you want to create, you want to start getting up earlier in the morning. That's a great time to start building that personality, those characteristics of someone who does get up early in the morning. You start putting that into your morning meditation, and you see yourself as already there. You start to envision what your life is like, having all of the things that you desire, having reached your goals. And when you can do that powerfully enough in your morning meditations particularly, then you start to bring up the emotion that comes along with having that thing that it is you desire. Because really, it's not about the things that we desire. It's about how we want to feel and operate in the world. And the things outside of us can help us or not help us, depending. And so when you drop that aspect of your mind believing that what you want you already have, you then start to have the feeling associated with that, which then causes your vibration, your cells, your energy to vibrate and to emit at a certain frequency that the universe can then respond back to. So that's, again, a big topic that I don't want to get too deep into today, but what I do want to bring to your attention is that powerful time between waking up, sleeping and waking up. There is a very brief window. So that's why I'm a strong proponent of learning to wake up a little bit earlier each day until you reach your desired time. Might not be 5 a.m. Everybody is different. it's 5 a.m. the morning for me is perfect. As I've mentioned before, the world is quiet, my family is still asleep, the sun's just rising, the day is getting a little bit brighter, but it's a very peaceful time. So for me, that works great. It might be 7, it might be 9, it might be 10 for you, depending on what your life is like. But there is, all of us have that moment between being asleep and entering the wakeful consciousness. And so if you can bring your meditation practice to that little window, that time and that space where you haven't quite engaged the conscious thinking, it's pure magic. So if nothing else here, just I put this out as an invitation for you to explore that space. Now, you may be a practice meditator and already doing this, fantastic. You may have never tried meditation and be like, what is she talking about? What I'd like to bring to your attention, if you've never meditated before, I do recommend that you take it on. Now is the time to really be engaging and strengthening your meditation practice. However, if that's not your jam, that's okay, but you still have that window, that time. And so rather than labeling it as the time that you meditate, you can use that time to sit and observe. You can use that time to maybe journal. You can use that time to maybe just reflect. It doesn't have to be this hardcore, I need to straighten my spine and sit up straight and use my breath and do all these things and I'm not doing it right, so I'm just going to give up. It doesn't have to be that. It's just a very brief window of time where you can drop into the moment, drop in your desires, bring up the feelings and the emotions that will propel you into a successful day, whatever that looks like for you. And so reflection can help with that. Journaling can help with that. It can be things like drawing. If you're an artist, maybe it's, you know, just a free flow drawing, whatever it is. But my invitation to you, if you're not a morning person and you would like to be a morning person, that's something I can help with. I have some great tips and tools on that. So please do reach out to me separately and I'd be happy to help you build those new habits, because honestly, building new habits, it all starts here and you can do it. I naturally wake up now, usually around 4:58, 4:59. It's just a habit or a product of the habits that I set for myself of starting to get towards the 5 a.m. goal. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier. And I used to even fight that. Say, wow, it's now 5 o'clock. It's only, 4:45. I'm going to take my last 15 minutes. All of that's gone now. It is such a joy for me to wake up and drop into my morning routine. Yeah, it's just the way I need to start my day. So there you have it. Whatever I can do to help you have a deeper and more clear experience of that window of time, wherever I can help you to learn to really work with your mind, because we know that as you train and understand and learn how to work with your conscious mind and your subconscious programming and subconscious belief, the more powerful you're going to be in your life. The more peace you're going to have, the better health you're going to have, the better choices you're going to make throughout your day. If you set it up right in the beginning, you're going to make healthier choices. You're going to reach for better food. You're going to fit that exercise in. You're going to tackle the tasks that you need to do. You're going to prioritize in a certain way, and you're going to get insight and information that isn't normally available to you. So there you have it. Without much further ado, I do see that our guest is coming online, so I'm just going to bring her in. I'll be right back. Hi, there you are.
Hi, good morning.
I hear you. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. I'm just going to do a little brief introduction before we get started. So today I'm super excited to welcome Corinne Underwood, who is also in Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, which is just beside my little town of Maple Ridge. Corinne is the founder of Choices for Sexual Health. And I think, Corinne, correct me if I'm right, although you're located in Pitt Meadows, you do work virtually. You work with people from wherever?
Yes, I do indeed. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So Corinne is a certified sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, a somatic sex therapist apprentice, a consent practitioner, a sexual health educator, and a Reiki master. So, wow, that is an amazing list of things that you do.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
it's been a journey and a really fulfilling one.
Awesome. Very cool. So you work, well, I'm just going to read here from your description that you work with clients to repair and strengthen the relationship with themselves and others by supporting them to heal trauma, to love themselves shamelessly, to embody pleasure and deepen intimacy, and to utilize sexual energy to live fulfilling lives. That's beautiful. And again, like, wow, it's quite a topic. And you do all of this through
Juicy.
your coaching, through therapy, through workshops, and you speak and you teach and all of that, right?
Yes, I do. Thanks for the great introduction, Heather. And I do offer private one-on-one sessions out of Oasis Wellness in Coquitlam as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And is that currently open through the COVID?
Yeah, actually, they're opening June the 1st. They decided to delay their opening just a little bit longer.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so and that's in Coquitlam.
Yes, it is. It's right beside Reflections bookstores for some people that may know.
For our
Yeah.
local viewers today.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would love to hear a little bit about how you, Corrine, had this, journey. You were a kid and then a teenager, and here you are. Like, how did you get to this work and where you are at with it?
Thanks, Heather. Great question. So my dream actually from the time I was 10 was to be a sex therapist, which isn't normally dreams for kids at that age. And really how that came about was the fact that I went through puberty really early. And for the environment that I grew up in, we didn't talk about our bodies. We didn't talk about sexual health. We didn't talk about sexuality. And puberty and menstruation and all of that was sort of considered taboo and there's a lot of shame around it. And no fault of my parents, it just wasn't part of their dynamic to discuss things openly. And I'm the third of three in our family. And so basically when I got my period, I thought I was dying. I didn't know what it was. And I really thought I was bleeding from the inside out. Right. And it was super scary. And I also, because I physically developed, my body changed. And I was an athlete. I've always been an athlete. I competed in professional tennis at the time. And I was a competitive runner. And I went through these major body changes. And I was relentlessly bullied. It was by my peers, by my sports coaches, by adults in the community. And it was a really horrific time. And we didn't have the resources like we have today. We didn't have the internet. And so the only way I could learn about my body was through a radio show. There was a number of sex therapists that were on the radio, and literally from the age of 10, I would listen at night with my headphones on when my parents thought I was sleeping. Wow. And so that was my desire at that time, was really to, get more comfortable in my body. But because of the shame and so much that was happening with bullying, I wanted to revert to a pre-pubescent state. So what happened is the only way I knew how to do that was to stop eating. And so it took me on this path of anorexia and bulimia for almost 20 years of changing and morphing my body. But throughout that process, I still remained super curious about sexuality and really empowerment in our bodies. And so my desire was to go through to become a sex therapist. It wasn't really an option then. I went to university for a combined psychology and business degree. And then I physically got healthy. I recovered from my eating disorder. And then my kind of world took off in a different format. And so I left the country, I went overseas, and I started creating businesses globally. And while I was in other countries, though, I was so attuned to how people related to their bodies, particularly for women around menstrual health and wellness. So I created a women's collective in Nepal when I lived there. And it was all in respect to making menstrual pads, reusable pads, and going into the schools and talking about menstruation and talking about puberty. And that sort of morphed into so much more. And I, studied Tantra, and I took all different types of modalities regarding sexuality. And it wasn't, fast forward, it wasn't until I gave birth to my daughter, despite, doing this from a volunteer perspective and building businesses, it wasn't until I gave birth at 38 and I looked at this amazing being, and also reflecting on the fact that when I was pregnant, it was really the first time in my life that I felt completely whole and connected with my body. And looking at her very shortly after she was born, I thought, I want to change the world, sexually speaking, for the next generation. And so that's what took me on the path of quitting my big development job, leaving the relationship I was in at that time, and going back to school. And so my daughter's 10 now, and here we are. So, and it's a lifelong journey that we're all on.
Yeah, absolutely. What an amazing story. And I can totally relate. I know my parents are British, so there was no talking about any of this stuff. And I remember it was maybe just a couple months before I actually got my cycle, where my mom gave me a book about sexuality in the body, and that was it. There was no discussion. It was just a handover, and that's it. And so I know for me, I also have a 10-year-old daughter, like the level of discussion and openness is just, for me, it's such a joy to see that we are having these, some of us are having these conversations. But I also, I do have friends who still have some discomfort in bringing the subject forward, especially with daughters.
It's
Yeah.
huge, and we bring with us so many layers of conditioning and our own traumas and fear, and we're all doing the best we can out there, but change doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow and steady process that takes a lot of support.
Yeah. Yeah. And so along your way, like I hear you that you sort of did a very independent self-learning journey, but did you have any mentors or teachers or anything like that that came into your life, or was this really self-directed the whole way?
Well, I would say the first, really I was on this journey from the time I, was 10, and then particularly overseas, it was very much a self journey and exploration. And I just dived deep into a lot of courses and groups. And I would say most of my mentorship, direct one-on-one mentorship, has really been more in the last 10 years.
Right.
And what I find, and that's been a long, part and parcel with my education and my business development, but I've really, in my 40s as well, I find that I've just really stepped into my own, not only stepped into honoring my body more, but stepped into more community and openness. And with that, these mentors have just been so amazing. And the most interesting thing is, and this sort of shifts the dynamic, is that often we are so socialized to be led to believe that sexuality is very age specific,
Yep.
which it's not, right? It starts from the time of conception and it ends at death. But we're forced into this thinking from a media standpoint. And my mentors that I have that are very pronounced in the field of sexual health and sexuality are actually much more mature in age than I am. And that is so incredibly inspiring to me. And yet they're able to create this incredible sort of holistic and uplifting environment around sexuality. And it's just, it's been just so profound.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not gender specific, right?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. No, not at all. So I have all different genders that have been so inspirational to the work that I do.
That's fantastic. Because I also think that, I have friends, being a parent, I have friends with sons, and we talk a lot about the importance of bringing them into the conversation so that there's a very equal awareness of both sides along the way, and like
Absolutely.
how the big change that could make in future generations.
Yeah. And I think part of it is just opening up the dialogue, right? I mean, it's a really scary thing for people to think, oh my gosh, now I have to do this work, right? It can be overwhelming, particularly if we have fears or any type of traumas, but just actually creating community that we can have conversations like we're having now, it takes that sort of the shame and the stigma away. And shame is the biggest killer of everything sexual, right? Shame is the killer of self-esteem and confidence. So if we can diffuse the shame and stigma, we're actually, moving in a direction that's much more positive and open.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're creating space for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. I'd like to hear a little bit about when you do have clients that come to you, there's probably some moments of hesitation or discomfort and things like that. So what are some of the techniques or the tools that you use to help them through that?
Yes, well, it's interesting. This is an ever-evolving business, and trying to find, what the best platform. My initial focus has been on sort of local community, so building trust in community, and it's really about people getting to know me to say that, okay, not only does she have the professional credentials, and the life experience, but she is trustworthy and has integrity and holds ethics, right? And so to do that, it's a combination of many things. It's getting out and speaking in the communities. It's about getting into the schools and being around parents and teachers and youth. It's about having, the openness of discovery calls, which I have that are complimentary. So people have the opportunity either in person or Zoom format. So we get to just, basically have a conversation, which isn't this heavy focused.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the next step is for me to support them with where they're at, meeting them where they're at. And I think that's a big piece, is that, you know, there's one thing, but we bring to our current situation the whole complexities of our past, but we don't want to keep living in that story of our past either. So when we can meet somebody where they're at, but also being mindful of where they're come from and creating a supportive tools, an environment so that they can thrive moving forward, that's really the key. And I don't have, you know, a lot of time people say, like, do you have a blueprint? Like, what is your system? And that's like, well, we're talking about sexuality. Sexuality doesn't exist in a vacuum. Sexuality is a mixture of our spirit, our what we think, what we feel from a heart, and what we sense. And so they're all integrated with sexuality. And so what I work on a path with one person is probably going to be very different than I work with somebody else. So really meeting them where they're at is super important.
Yeah. What about someone who is really struggling to let go of their story? How would you sort of help them with that? Their identification with the shame and the fear and the guilt.
Yeah, it's really small steps. It's really small steps, and there's so many things that we can do. But you know, when I speak in terms of somatic, when I talk about somatic practice, so somatic is a return to the body. So if we talk about our life in general, for many of us, we can rationalize, we can talk about it, or we can have therapy in respect to counseling and talk therapy. That only does a portion for us. The other piece is the integration of what's going on in our body. And so by literally bringing it back to our body, which is a combination of breath and movement, small movements in safe enough environments, we don't have to even think about all these other stuff of these layers of like, I don't really want to talk. There's no talking we need to do in those moments, right? Yeah. Those moments are really about coming home to our body and noticing our sensation and how we're breathing. And that's the first step.
That's beautiful. And as you know, I'm all about meditation.
Yes.
And so you've just outlined it right there, because I was going to ask you if you bring meditation to it, but that's it, right? Just really being present, noticing sensations, noticing and feeling and just being, right?
Yeah, in a supportive environment. And I use the term safe enough, because we can never have 100% safe situation, right? But if we can create an environment that for someone that they have full voice and choice over, that they are the ones that are making the decision for themselves, with myself supporting them, then that can open up just a whole plethora of opportunities for somebody. And when I reflect on meditation and what it's also done for myself and in my life, I look at meditation as the beautiful act of receiving a gift. And that gift is this incredible connection with source, whatever that is for each individual person, but also love and belonging and energy. Yeah. And what a beautiful gift we can give to ourselves.
Yeah. Nicely put. Well said. I did want to ask you if you would speak a little bit about, you said you're a consent practitioner, and I know that this is a super hot topic, super important topic. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that work.
Thank you. So I've trained under an amazing doctor, Dr. Betty Martin. She's situated in Seattle, and she is the founder of a program called the Wheel of Consent. There's a lot to the wheel, but in short, that there's, no matter whether we're in a sexual environment or non-sexual environment, we are navigating boundaries and consent all day long, right? In communication through Zoom, in a business platform, with our family, with our friends, and of course, from a deeply intimate and sexual experiences. And so as a consent practitioner, I work with all ages and aspects, not just in the sexual realm, but in the business realm as well, to learn how to communicate, role model, and work within the wheel of consent. And it's incredibly powerful. And there's a number of different steps that we take to get very familiar to work within the wheel, but it's incredibly applicable to all aspects of life.
Amazing. And have you, I'm assuming that has been brought into schools and youth, because I think
Working on it.
yeah, okay, good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Thank you. In fact, from a school standpoint, we can talk about boundaries in our personal bubble within the elementary school age group.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can't speak and model and conduct exercises specifically around consent until kids are actually at a legal age, right?
Yes.
So we got to be mindful of the legalities around consent. So the program that actually I'm putting together right now that I will be putting forth to the high schools is specifically for actually grades 11 and 12 that are working the wheel of consent specifically. And then for the other grades, it's about boundaries in our personal bubble.
Right.
But it is super important. And, I think over time and working in the schools is, we mindful of finances and bringing in a private educator. And of course it has to also be approved by the PACs,
Right.
but it's a big part of that piece is me getting out and talking about it and meeting with the community so that they understand what this is all about. That's a big part of it. But yeah, it's slowly but surely.
That's great. I know for me, at our school, when we did have someone come in to do some sex education, she had a meeting prior with the parents the night or two. And it was, for me, so interesting to hear the different levels of familiarity and comfort and discomfort within the parents that were there, and how good that was for them to be able to connect with this woman who was then about to talk to their children the next day about topics that they hadn't maybe broached yet. So
100%. And that's what I do too. I do a parent talk ahead of time. And it's just a great way to also build community and trust around the topic. But then they get to, all those fears tend to get diffused in that session, right?
Yeah. And as a parent where we have very open conversations here, I'm also very aware to inform my daughter that perhaps not all families are speaking with this language, so we need to be mindful. So it's a bit of a dance to walk.
Indeed it is. And it really comes back to our value systems in the household. And that's when I work with parents and in the community, I say, your values are so important in this. So we can integrate age appropriate education in the household and in schools while still maintaining your values. And that's a really important piece.
Yeah. Amazing. Awesome. My other question is, so we've already touched on this, you work with all kinds of youngsters, but I'd love to hear a little bit about the reception from the youth that you work with. Yeah,
it's, I work with currently with some young women from the YWCA, and we have so much fun. I think that's really what it comes down to. I know when we initially sort of had the meeting together, there was lots of fears and lots of insecurities, like, oh my gosh, am I going to be put on the spot? And when we actually get into it and just like, this is for you to ask questions, and again, meeting you where you're at. So if you want to talk, you can talk. If you want to do a dance, you can. If you just want to sit and hold space, that's okay, because you're amazing just the way you are. And so once we set that environment, it opens the door for so much more. And you have to have humor in this. Sex is messy. And like, seriously, like once you can bring humor into it, it diffuses so much fear for people. And I love also, the gender mix. Every time I work with youth, the questions that they ask and the integrity that they have and the sincerity that they bring, the true curiosity, they really want to learn. And their world is their oyster. So it's not like we're trying to put this in a box. And for most youth, they don't have this big attachment piece to it. It's more like, I'm eager to learn. I want to grow and develop and be in community. And so how, help me with this. And it's just beautiful. It's really beautiful.
That's amazing. And it actually leads me into the next question I wanted to ask. So I imagine that there's probably a lot of women out there who could benefit from this type of work. And I'd love to get some insight from you on what it is that takes a woman from that place of knowing that maybe they could use this to actually making the call, because I know that for some that would be quite a bridge to jump, right?
It's a really big bridge to jump, and some might never do that, right? Like, some may never do it, and I'm faced with that all the time. Is that there's so many people that I know genuinely that need the support and help, but it's just too big of a shift for them to do that. I think, you know, again, having a supportive network, having the opportunity for exposure. And what I mean by that is for them to, you know, even for myself and the work that I do, that they see how I interact, they see my integrity, they see that I'm genuine, and getting a feel. And some people might really love me, some people might love another person. But sometimes for people, it's just maybe they need to read something, maybe they need to hear something, and the switch is going to go off, right? And we're all at different stages in our life. And sometimes many of us will reach a complete breaking point that we're like, enough is enough, and now I really need to step in. And other people are like, yeah, this isn't working for me, so I want to get more support now. Or others are like, no, I'm just going to deal with my situation. The other stuff is too challenging, right?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing about this is that no matter what our background is, and I always like to kind of reframe to coming back home to our body. And this really isn't about sexuality. This is about us feeling comfortable in our being and being able to give ourselves permission to receiving pleasure. And pleasure isn't just genital focus. Pleasure is about incorporating a life that is pleasurable in all realms. And that is really what is the premise of my work that I do. It's taking it away from the sexual side and bringing pleasure home to your body in everything, from all of the senses. Whether you're walking in the woods, when you're eating a beautiful strawberry, you're engaging with a friend, or it's something involving your genitals. Pleasure is an important and essential part of life. And so helping you feel good in your body in those ways that you need for you.
That is beautiful. And I definitely get that you walk your talk with the food photos that I see that you show. Because presentation is, I just want to dive in and eat it.
You're so sweet.
It's very
I am a foodie. I'm a foodie. And you know what, Heather, to be honest with you, because I spent so many years of my life with, you know, suffering from the eating disorder that I had and being afraid of food, stepping into pleasure in my body that is, again, not just sexual pleasure, but honoring my being. Food is just the most beautiful, pleasurable thing for me now. And to be able to nourish my body that way and also share it with my family is one of the best things in life for me.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that full circle you've just presented there. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
And I can't wait till COVID is over and all us ladies can get together and have a meal.
Yay! Yes, I love that.
I'm just going to ask you two more quick questions before I let you go. One is that I read on your website that you're about creating body positive, sexually healthy homes.
Yeah.
So I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but this leads into my next question, which is, you know, for any parents out there that are trying to find their way, they maybe have their own discomfort levels, but they've got kids, they know they should be doing something. What's a nugget of advice that you would give them to get them started?
So let's focus not on appearance, but on who we are as people. And I find this especially as children and kids develop and they get close to that puberty stage, there's a greater emphasis on body image and appearance, and this is all genders.
Yeah.
And we are being, of course, more inundated through social media in all forms. So really taking the focus away from appearance and really bringing that integration piece into who they are as beings, you know, their strengths, their characteristics, how they maneuver in the world, the respect they show other people, how they give back, right? How to support them through that process. And another little small thing that I highly suggest, and I do this for myself, and we actually do it in my household, is mirror work. And what I mean by mirror work, it's as simple as this, is that you have a pack of sticky notes that you put in the bathrooms. And when you wake up in the morning, you choose one small thing that you like about your body and one character that you like about yourself, one characteristic, and you write that on the sticky note, those two things, and you put on the mirror. And by the end of the week, you have, you know, all these, you have 14 things at least, right? Yeah. And I say that one small thing because particularly as kids are getting very self-critical about their being, if we can, it's just one thing, maybe it's the tip of their nose, or maybe it's the freckle on their face. And if we can focus on gratitude in a small way about our body and our life, that's going to help us get through these tough times. Yeah. And having support around that in the household.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much for the work you do. And thank you so much for coming on here today.
You're beautiful. I love the work you do, and I'm so honored. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you. Now, just before I let you go, I'm going to do our closing questions, which I hope
Yay.
you're
Okay.
prepared for.
I am prepared.
Number one, your number one tool or technique that you practice every single day without fail that keeps you in balance.
You bet. So that is the mirror work, number one. And I dance. So literally for 10 minutes a day, so after I go to the bathroom, do my mirror work, I go into a separate room, I put the tunes on, and I literally just move my body.
Beautiful.
And it is so empowering. And it's, for me, it's a connection to my breath. It's a connection to movement and sensation. And really, it's just about being free in my being.
Who doesn't need more of that? Hey?
Right. And I laugh too, because I can do whatever dance I want. No one's watching.
No one's watching. Awesome. And what is the number one habit that you struggle with the most, that you find it really hard to be consistent with?
Well, exercise is super important to me. And so it's really, I do exercise every day, but it's try to, especially now with COVID and homeschooling, and just finding that when to fit that in. I'm a morning person, so I really ideally like exercising in the morning. So I'm finding that getting up earlier is key to get that exercise in. But sometimes we're tired because we have long days, but that piece is super important to me, because that's what fuels my creative energy as well and makes me feel really good in my body. But just it's that time piece when I'm going to put that into the day, right? With everybody else in the household as well, and schedules. Yeah.
Perfect. And it's funny because the piece I did just before you came on was talking about how important a morning routine is.
Okay.
So nice tie in there.
Yay.
Okay. I'd like you to imagine that you're sitting with yourself 5 years ago. What one piece of advice would you give to yourself? Got to narrow it down to one.
Take a breath. Get off the mouse wheel. It's okay. Everything will work out.
Yeah, I hear that one a lot on this question. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. What are you reading right now?
Oh, you know what? The Body Keeps Score.
Oh.
It's the most amazing book. And I can't even pronounce the author. I can run and get it, but it's The Body Keeps Score, and it's the most incredible book. It's about how we hold on to trauma and how it manifests in our body from on a cellular level. And it's just a profound book. Yeah.
Awesome. Good. I'll check that one out.
Yeah.
And finally, and I will post this on the blogs, but if you can just let us know how people can connect with you.
Yes, you bet. So my website is choicesforsexualhealth.com. Right on my website, they can book a discovery call. They can email me through info@choicesforsexualhealth.com. They also can follow me on Facebook, Choices for Sexual Health, and Instagram. And LinkedIn is CL Underwood. So I use my initial of my middle name.
Awesome. So you are
lots of different
contactable.
ways. Oh yeah. I'm out there.
Great. And so if anyone needs any help or support in this area, whether it be from a parent's point of view, a personal point of view, a relationship point of view, you work with couples too, is that?
I sure do a lot of work with couples, yes.
Yeah. So any of those things, then Corinne is a great resource for you. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to have you sign off, and I'm going to stay online. Just
love it. Thanks so much, Heather. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, so there you have it, folks. That was Corinne Underwood from Choices for Sexual Health. I hope you got some value out of that. I sure did. I know that, as I mentioned, I have a daughter and a lot of school-aged kids in my life. And so, these are important subjects for us to understand in our own life and understand in our own being, and also in our family relationships, and also in the community at large. So if you do need some support, or you'd like to learn more about the work that Corinne does, then please reach out to her and let her know. Thank you again for joining us on the Naturally Present Life series. If you have a topic you want covered, let me know. I'll go find the subject expert. If you need some help or support with your own meditation practice, or you're looking for some coaching to help you figure out what you should be doing with your life, you need some clarity, then please let me know. I'm at heathermcgregor.ca or Naturally Present on Facebook. Have a beautiful day, everyone. This is Heather signing out for now. Peace.